It's a factory that produces the stuff dreams are made of. Millions of fans around the world rely on the fantasies and products inspired by one man.
It's teaching people to think for themselves.
The Sci-Fi Channel presents a behind-the-scenes look inside TSR, the creative home to an extraordinary team who are truly masters of fantasy. Fantasy begins in our imagination. Others feed our sense of adventure. Movies and television take us where no one has gone before. But there is another path to exploring the unknown, and it's been charted by a company called TSR.
In the very simplest sense, TSR is a company that creates entertainment.
TSR is the home of a unique team of artists, writers, and creators who are masters of fantasy in realms known to millions of fans worldwide. TSR stands for Tactical Studies Rules, but now the company is known only by the three initials. TSR began in 1974 on borrowed money in order to publish the game Dungeons and Dragons.
I was working as an insurance underwriter, and I just finally said that no, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna write games. I'm gonna try to write stories. I want to be a kid again and have fun.
Today, it's the leader in a $250 million a year fantasy game industry.
I had no idea it was going to go international.
Co-founder Gary Gygax helped run the company until 1985, when Lorraine Williams became president and CEO.
What Dungeons and Dragons did is it created a whole new category of games. You had the miniature games, and you had board games, and you had card games like bridge and gin rummy and poker. But this really became a new game form.
In 1997, the company underwent another major change of ownership, but their leadership in the fantasy industry remains intact.
I meant it to be fun. I think the game was a lot of fun. I think it still is a lot of fun.
Since its inception, TSR has seen phenomenal growth through games that explore dozens of imaginary worlds. From a game set in the Old West, where six-shooters can settle any argument, to lands ruled by sword-wielding hordes of barbarians. From Gothic worlds, where vampires lurk, to the lands of 1,001 Arabian adventures. From many realms where dragons roam and magic is the law of the land, and into the far reaches of outer space.
Where are we?
We're in a place that was only rumored to exist.
It just is another form of storytelling, and it's imaginative. It's complementary, and it's very, very similar to science fiction. And that's always, both science fiction and fantasy have always been great interests of people, because it's a way to look either creatively backwards or creatively forwards.
It's the job of the TSR creative team to expand existing game worlds and develop new ones.
I think one of the biggest challenges in creating a game line from the beginning, from scratch, is in knowing what level of detail to strive for.
Attention to detail is what TSR games and publications are known for. Artists sometimes use actual photographs to help visualize characters, and sometimes the models are other TSR employees. Once a storyline is approved, Pencil sketches of new characters can be turned into full-blown original paintings. TSR is an international multimedia giant with products translated into 26 languages and sold in more than 50 countries.
Velha senhora, o que faz neste templo do mal?
Good morning, TSR Incorporated.
Its headquarters are located not in a major metropolitan city, but in the quiet little mid-America town of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
The funnest part of the job is the creation, is the coming up with the new ideas, sitting around in groups and brainstorming.
You can fly in a fantasy story. You can slay dragons in a fantasy story. You can solve mysteries and outwit the villains.
For me, the excitement and the passion is seeing my dreams come alive. I sit at the computer, I create the worlds, the adventures, and then they go out to the players, and the players make them their own.
I always try to describe a role-playing game to people as, you remember when you were a little kid and you played cops and robbers and good guys and bad guys, or cowboys and Indians. That's the foundation of it.
You do not make the save. You drop to your knees, gagging and choking as this black smoke comes billowing out from all sides, as if someone...
One of the things that we take pride in with this company is that everything that we've created stays as part of the history. So somebody new can come along and join in and get up to speed and enjoy it for the first time.
At home in their creative hideaway, these masters of fantasy have turned TSR into a major publishing and game corporation.
I got into military miniatures when I was in my teens, just trying to make up a game with all the neat toy soldiers I had.
The concept of using sets of rules to make combat games realistic was started in 1913 by the legendary science fiction author H.G. Wells in his book called Little Wars.
All you have to do is put your troops out and move and fight. And we dig in.
Some of the guidelines spelled out by H.G. Wells are still used today. But for Gygax, the realistic military campaigns became too predictable. And in 1973, he decided to add a touch of magic.
And suddenly a great ugly troll came out from under the bridge, and there was a wizard who could throw fireballs.
It didn't seem right to play the magical adventures on the traditional miniature battlefields.
I did a game called Chainmail. It was actually a set of military miniatures rules with a fantasy supplement in the back where you could have giants and ogres and dragons, and we had heroes and superheroes. Dave Arneson said, I think we ought to move this to the underground instead of having it on the tabletop, and then everybody will just assume a role of one of these heroes, or a superhero, or an elf, and so forth. So that's how it got going.
Since the new game was set under the battlefields in dungeons, and since the most terrifying monsters you could find there were dragons, the name of this new game was obvious.
And I'll start circling around.
Okay. Word of this new twist on the familiar games began to spread, especially on college campuses, because now you could make up your own adventures instead of having to follow someone else's battle plan.
The huge appeal that all the players found was here's, now I can be a hero, I can be a wizard, I can be a swordsman, I can be a clever thief or a bumbling one or whatever. You could play them seriously or not, but you could go have these adventures without risk to life and limb.
Gygax and his friends realized they had to write down some rules, so they formed a company and named it Tactical Studies Rules, after their war game association.
I played for perhaps a month and then wrote 50 pages of rules. Sent them around to a lot of friends in colleges and so forth. Got feedback, wrote a 150-page manuscript, and that was published in 1974 as Dungeons and Dragons.
The original set of rules described general guidelines that players could adapt to their own game sessions.
You have to talk about what their adversaries are, what the rewards are, what the punishments are, and so forth. It gets fairly complex. Wizards have many spells, and you have to know what they are and what effect they have on the environment. So it gets to be, it's a huge ongoing process that it starts very simply with a little outline.
Dungeons & Dragons became a huge hit, and along with the updated Advanced Dungeons & Dragons has sold more than 50 million units. Through Dungeons & Dragons, TSR had essentially invented a new form of fantasy entertainment, fantasy role-playing games.
My character's name is Jack Everstar. I carry 2 pistols in my hands.
My character is Pete Havoc. He is a cyborg commando.
Well, I'm playing Kalen. He's a human male. He's a bio-warrior.
I'm playing Hunter. She's an explorer and a finder of lost things.
I'm playing Dr. Nierg. He's an old alien doctor specialized in medicine. He doesn't believe in violence, and so instead of a regular pistol, he carries one that stuns his opponents.
He goes down. Good shot.
Role-playing games are a combination of impromptu acting, dice games, and a group storytelling session.
Give me a dexterity check. We'll see if you land on your feet.
No problem. Slight problem.
One of the distinctive features of these types of role-playing games, as described in the original Dungeons & Dragons game, is the presence of a game master or dungeon master who directs the action.
It's got 8 arms, a shell. It's dripping some kind of cosmic goo that you've never seen before.
The game master, dungeon master, whatever you want to call that person, sets everything. He's the director. He or she writes the scripts, as it were, prepares what you're going to be doing, sets the stage.
When last we left our intrepid heroes, they had been captured by the alien species they were investigating.
It's a wonderful role for anybody who loves a little bit of improvisational theater to get in there and play these roles. But what they are really doing is managing a whole production.
Your typical game session lasts for an evening. And in that time, they can either tell a full group story, or they can tell a portion of the group story. And we call it group storytelling, role-playing. But that's only part of a campaign, and campaigns can go on for months, years, decades. I've been running a game now for 6 years. They can just go on for as long as you still have stories to tell, and the players are still interested in their heroes.
Well, that's a good success.
It's estimated that 20 million people have participated in fantasy role-play games around the world. At least 100 million people have bought or played fantasy games that involve cards, board miniatures, or CD-ROM images.
Welcome to Fantasy Empires.
There have to be rules for each game. Sometimes it's a thick manual of complex details.
We use rules to add an element of suspense, drama, excitement, and doubt. You only use the rules when common sense doesn't prevail.
Basically, we don't tell you what adventure to have, and we don't tell you what is going to happen in your gaming. What we do is we give you a bunch of character examples. We give you a number of stories. We give you the visual images and some guidelines.
TSR's creators publish volumes that describe all the characters you can portray and what their strengths and weaknesses are. They also write comprehensive reference books describing all the monsters with their quirks and personalities players might encounter during a role-playing session. And there are even home videos that explain how a game is supposed to be played.
Feeling brave tonight? How brave? Brave enough to do battle with hideous monsters? Brave enough to sneak around dank castles in the dark and chance being the next victim?
There are dozens of companies that produce fantasy board and role-playing games. But the originator and leading innovator of the genre is TSR. Every summer, an amazing transformation takes place in the American Midwest. A large auditorium is transformed into the site of the biggest fantasy gaming convention in the world.
Once a year, for 4 days in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, approximately 30,000 gamers come together and spend as many hours a day as they can keep their eyes open gaming. They unfortunately probably don't go to the zoo, they don't go to the museums, they don't take trips on the lake, but they simply come from their hotel to the convention center, which we take every square inch of, and they play their games.
Okay, Jim. Bump, bump. Swat. Okay, what are you swatting with? A two-handed sword. Oh, that's a big, ugly weapon.
There are at least 6 million fantasy role-play gamers in the United States alone. It's estimated that 500,000 more people start playing these games every year.
Why are we fascinated with fantasy? I think it's because we all want to be a hero.
About 60% of the fantasy sci-fi games produced for this $250 million a year fantasy sci-fi market are made by TSR Incorporated.
Rogar, you're on the floor, hacking, no damage, but what do you want to do?
I want to hack out his knees.
Studies have found that a typical Dungeons & Dragons player spends from 10 to 24 hours a week playing the game.
A role-playing game is really an experience, it's a tabletop experience, where people jointly and collectively go together to achieve a goal, to get the gold, get the jewels, conquer the monster, and they go on expeditions and explorations.
Killed by his own poison.
It's black and white in a fantasy world. You know who's good and who's bad and how to win by beating the villain. And then you can live happily ever after.
But the fate of the role-play industry almost did not have a fairy tale ending. There was a time when controversy threatened to put the games out of business. In 1979, a 16-year-old student who was an avid Dungeons & Dragons player vanished. An underground 8-mile-long maze of steam tunnels where the boy and his friends played the game became the object of a massive search. It turned out that the troubled youth had run away on his own, but the damage had been done. There were lawsuits which were eventually dismissed, and the fantasy role-play industry had weathered the storm.
There are people who have a strong religious objection because they said, well, magic is not right, and witches are not right, and dragons are not right. That's fine. I mean, that's an understandable position. But people who say it's mind control, it's really quite the opposite. It's teaching people to think for themselves.
I'm the dungeon master. I know where all the treasure is hidden, and I run all the monsters you'll have to fight to get it.
TSR is a veritable fantasy factory, creating worlds, producing landscapes where our imaginations can run wild. TSR's team of artists and writers have turned the company into the world's largest producer of fantasy and sci-fi publications.
We put out 120 products a year. We publish 2 magazines. You know, we're a major publisher of best-selling fantasy novels, so there's an awful lot coming out of here.
TSR artists also work in a miniature model department to help create the look of a new game.
All I had to work with was a foam cutter, picnic plates, several model parts, little paraphernalia here and there that I added just for looks, and it just grew in my living room. Like that's off a hair curler and ping pong balls and little pins and rods and a little champagne cup base.
The finished model became part of TSR's outer space game, Alternative.
Am I happy? Absolutely. I'm doing what I love. It's my idea, really, of a success, is doing what you love for a living.
Most TSR employees say they were avid fantasy game fans way before they were hired to help create new games.
It was everybody's hobby before they turned it into a career. So we live and breathe it constantly.
Today, the age-old myths of magic and wizardry that first made Dungeons & Dragons popular have evolved into the computer age.
Go! Prepare for my coming!
From dreaming up original concepts, to illustrating games and books, to delivering products to feed people's imaginations around the world, TSR is indeed a one-of-a-kind workplace for a unique team of masters of fantasy.
There's no limit to what we can do. It's whatever we can dream of.
Watch the mysteries of the universe unfold as the Sci-Fi Channel takes you on an amazing journey through the cosmos, inside space, coming up next. Produced in association with the Sci-Fi Channel.